6. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the most awesomest homesteading channel on the planet that typically doesn't have anything whatsoever to do with homesteading off the grid. So folks, as you can see, pulling up in a new Benz here. It's not mine, it's my wife's. Listen, I'm going to be honest about this vehicle right here, okay? And it's not the vehicle. It's about the woman for whom I just bought this vehicle yesterday. This is a 2024 Mercedes-Benz GLB 250. I could brag about a lot of things. I could brag about how the suggested manufacturer retail price was $52,000, but because I paid cash, knocked them down to $40,000. I could brag about how I paid $40,000, so I don't have a car payment because I don't do payments, but I'm not going to because that's arrogant. I could brag about how the $40K that I used to pay this didn't come out of home equity, because we've never touched our home equity because we're not stupid with money, but it came out of last month's paycheck. And I could even brag that that amount, $40K, represented less than 50% of last month's earnings. But I'm not going to do that. And right now you're thinking, wow, we had no clue, Crazy Lake. We thought you were some crazy hermit that lived behind a locked gate out there in the country and didn't like to have anything to do with other people. Well, I mean, that's true, but that doesn't have anything to do with the subject matter. Folks, listen, if you've been following the channel for a while, you know that my beautiful bride, Dearly, is from the Philippines. She's been here in the United States 9 years. We've been together 15 years. She just got her driver's license a few weeks ago, and I've been telling her for years, hey, you get your driver's license, I'll go out and buy you a new Mercedes-Benz, trying to motivate her to do it. But it was just something she didn't really want to do for the longest time. But I'm getting older. She kind of understands the importance of having two legal drivers, and she's never been out there driving illegally. So shout out to her friend Lori, one of our best friends, who basically taught my wife how to drive this past spring. And we sent her to a driving school. She learned how, she drives very well. She got her license, so she got her car. Now, I'm going to tell you the story of what made it possible to do this. And from the financial standpoint, the way I did it, it has nothing to do with the car. It has nothing to do with me being awesome as I may be. It has everything to do with the woman for whom I bought the car, my beautiful bride, Dearly. She stays home. She's a homemaker. She raises our son, Daniel, as I do as well. Listen, we have a very traditional relationship. And a lot of people think that's misogynistic from my part, you know, because she stays home and does all the chores, the dishes, the cleaning, the laundry. And I go out there and work. I get to have a career and she doesn't. So I'm a misogynist and she's submissive. Nothing could be further from the truth. Let me tell you, you think she's submissive, you come over here and piss her off, and you better take off running, or at least make sure you hid the knives and machete before you pissed her off, okay? A lot of it's cultural from her end, a lot of it is preference from mine. But listen, she frees me up to where all I have to do is earn. And that's all I have to do, because she does everything else. I don't have to do anything except make money. And as a result of that, she gets to enjoy. It's funny. She'll often have people ask her about her freedom. Well, what about your freedom? What about your ability to come? She's always had that. She's never not had it. That's a perceived conception coming from a Western mindset being projected on someone from a different culture. Or there's certainly a lot of people within our culture who live very similar to us, very traditional lifestyles. Let me tell you, there's nothing toxic. There's nothing dysfunctional about it. It works for us, and we enjoy an amazing life. But now listen, a lot of folks are probably saying, oh, wow, how convenient for her to marry a rich American. Because I've had them tell me that to our face. We've had people just talk to us about the immigration situation, about how there needs to be an easier, softer, more understandable and affordable path to citizenship. My wife is a United States citizen. We followed the path that's in existence. We obeyed existing rules, and it was easy. It was simple. We never had a problem. There was never any fear or threat of deportation because we did it the right way. Okay? And when I've said that, what I get back from that, from these very nice, kind, progressive types is, oh, well, how convenient for her to marry a rich American. Folks, I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to read you a story, and many of you who have been on this channel for a long time have already heard this story. It's a story from a book I wrote called October Nights, 31 Tales for the Halloween Season. Okay, and there's also a part 2. Many of you have these books, you've read these books. These are Amazon's top-selling short story collections for the entire month of October. And I wrote them many, many years ago, at least the first one. The second one came out about 4 or 5 years ago. FYI, not every single story in these books is related to Halloween. Most of them are spooky or creepy, but I'm going to read you one that is going to be a perfect example of how they're not necessarily Halloween related. But I'm going to give you the true backstory on my wife and how she ended up getting this car and how we acquired it the way we did, okay? And I'm going to preface this by stating something that we often post on our Facebook page, where we have 1.25 million followers. And we started all this together. Our social media mini empire that's got closing in on 2 million followers and subscribers when you put together Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all the things we do, the affiliate marketing we do. We started together from scratch, and I'm going to take you back to that beginning. And because what it is, and what I was going to say, the post we make on Facebook, you've probably heard it said, happy wife, happy life. That's wrong. That is so wrong. Dearly and I, in the traditional lifestyle that we live in our relationship and how we're raising our son, we say it thus: happy spouse, happy house. Too many people, and I see this so much, especially in American culture, especially among Gen X, people that are 50 and older, they put so much emphasis on making sure the wife's happy. Nobody cares about the husband. Hey, if he's out there working like a dog 60 to 80 hours a week to provide stuff for the wife, oh, that's great, because happy wife, happy life, right? Well, what about him? I'm blessed to have a life partner who's my best friend, this is dearly, who agrees with me that it should be happy spouse, happy house, because it takes two to tango, and if you want to have a wonderful relationship, both people need to be treated well, okay? And that's what we have going for us. But let me take you back to the beginning. The story I'm going to read you is true, all right? These events took place 15 years ago, and here we are today. I hope you enjoy this. If you do like this story and you want to read the rest, these books are available on Amazon. The link will be in the description box below in print and Kindle. And you can get autographed print copies from our Etsy store. I'll put that link in the description box as well. But this is a story called The Writer's Wife. And as you might be able to imagine, this is about Dearly. So through this story, I will explain why I have no problem dropping $40K on anything my wife wants. Okay? This story is true. It has nothing to do with Halloween, perhaps, other than the fact that if it hadn't happened, you wouldn't be reading this collection of Halloween-flavored short stories right now. Plus, ironically, it does begin in October. October 2011. So, folks, this is going back 14 years. I'd gone back and forth from the Philippines to the U.S. a few times, all in an ill attempt to grab and retain virtually any form of gainful employment in the U.S., which would allow me to bring my beautiful bride, Dearly, and our then only months-old son, Daniel, to the U.S. with me and give them the best possible life I could give them. The long and short of it is that it didn't work out. I had several strikes going against me. One, it was during the Great Recession. Two, I'd previously been a securities dealer. My Series 7 securities license had lapsed while I was away fighting a war in Iraq. And no, that carried no leverage when trying to get on with any of the firms I called on after I got back. They didn't care. People say support the troops, support the veterans. Whatever, I'm getting ahead of myself. Three, I was strung out on more dope by the way of the Army Hospital and the Veterans Administration after sustaining several injuries in Iraq, which led to me taking anything I could get my hands on, all of which made me not quite the guy at the top of anyone's hiring list. Out of options, I wasn't about to stay in the U.S. alone and send money back to take care of my family and hope everything worked out. You see, my wife and son were living in Mindanao, the southernmost island in the Philippines, an island riddled with multiple terrorist networks who specialize in kidnappings for ransom. And since my son was half white, he had a huge target on his head at all times. It was very common in Mindanao for people to keep their eyes on children whose fathers were from the West, and even taxi drivers who were not part of any terrorist network would kidnap these kids once the fathers left the country, viewing it as easy money. Nannies and housekeepers did it all the time. And folks, this is all true. This is all true. I went back to Mindanao to be with my family. At least if I were there, someone would have to go through me to get to my son. And let me tell you, that translates to someone would have to kill me to get to my son. And just as the terrorists in Iraq had found out, I don't die easily. When I got back to Mindanao, we left Davao City, where I'd always stayed with Dearly before, and we went back to her province, which I'll not name here so as not to put any targets on any of her relatives' heads. We figured her large family would be a big help with our baby, and we were right, as family is still important in the Philippines culture, much as it used to be here in the United States. It didn't take long before I sunk into a pretty deep depression. I was living in the jungle with no electricity or running water. We had a 9-month-old baby we were feeding off of roots and other wild edibles we could dig up in the jungle, and an ever-constant supply of fish and squid I would get from the fishermen whom I helped carry the boats in from the sea in the mornings when they returned from the night fishing. Anyone who shows up to help pull in the boats is given a handful of fish or squid by the fishermen that they help. At first, no one would give me any fish or squid because they assumed that since I was an American, I had to be rich, and I didn't need food. They couldn't understand why I even worked. In their minds, Americans don't need to work because they're all already rich. They believe our government just sends us all a check every week. However, once these fishermen saw me day after day, they began giving me free fish and squid, and to their character, they gave me more than the locals. "You big Americano," they would say, "need eat more fish." One night, while drunk on tuba, a wine made out of the sap from a coconut tree that tastes like table vinegar, and crying about how I hated my life, Dearly asked me what we could do to get to America. "The economy's in the shitter," I told her. "I've burned every bridge I ever had. The only way we could get there and raise our kid there and have good lives there is if I were to make it as a writer. If I were just to succeed as a writer, right?" "Then make it as a writer," she says. "That's crazy," I told her. "Do you know how many writers actually make enough money to live off of their writing?" "No," she said. "Neither do I said, after stopping to think about it for a minute. "But I'm sure it's just a few." "Then become one of the few," she said. What struck me about this whole conversation was how easily she thought I could do it. Did she really believe in me this much, or was this one of those ignorance is bliss moments? I'm certainly not disrespecting my wife by saying this, but here she was, a third world poor 23-year-old girl who'd grown up in a small fishing village in the jungle, who'd probably never used the internet until she went to Davao City to attend college for the few years that she could afford to do so. By way of a not-so-poor grandmother, who, by the way, quit paying her tuition, which is roughly $250 a semester in U.S. dollars over there, and kicked her out when she found out she was dating an American. Why should she help support her? She had a rich American boyfriend. And no, Dearly never was able to go back and finish college because no, her rich American boyfriend wasn't so rich after all. Anyway, the next morning, while trying to sleep off a tuba hangover, which, let me tell you, is worse than a Schlitz malt liquor hangover by far, I got my answer. She believed in me. "Wake up," she said. I opened my eyes and looked up, and I saw my beautiful bride standing in the doorway. She had a notebook in one hand and 3 ink pens in the other. She threw it all on the bed and she said, "Write." We had no computer. We had no internet, We had nothing. But Dearly had scrounged what few pesos we had, walked half a mile down the hill to the road, paid half of what we had to a tricycle driver who took her 2 miles into the closest thing resembling a town and back, and used the other half of what we had to buy a notebook and 3 ink pens so I could write. And with those pens, I wrote until my hands cramped. And in that notebook, I handwrote a novel called Off Switch. I would spend months going to an internet cafe, renting a computer for 15 pesos an hour, roughly 40 cents, when we had the money, to type it into a Word doc, and these months were interspersed with weeks when we didn't have the money for me to rent the computer time. And the whole time I was in those internet cafes, I was harassed by the locals because my nose was so long, my arms were so hairy, and my skin was so white. But I persevered because my wife would not let me quit. It was a long, hard climb, but we made it. Eventually, and after being taken advantage of by a lot of douchebags in the mainstream media and the internet blogging world who would publish my work without paying me, Joe the plumber, who's not really a plumber and whose name isn't even Joe, and Alex Jones, who's an effing nutcase, or two of them, just to name two, I finally started getting paid for my writing from afar, and in time, I was earning enough money from writing to come back to America, get an apartment, a car, furniture, and begin the visa process to bring my wife to America. She and our son stayed back for 6 months without me while I was in the U.S. doing this. I moved them across town once in Mindanao when we had confirmed a kidnapping plot on my son, and when we got word of another, I moved them to Manila, where they lived for 3 months alone until I returned to be with them for another 6 months before we came to the U.S. to live happily ever after, which is exactly what we've been doing. The reason I'm writing this story and including it in this anthology, October Nights, is because my wife dearly and our son Daniel deserve to have this story told, and they deserve to have it preserved. The only reason I'm alive right now, and folks, this is the God's honest truth. The only reason I didn't drink and drug myself to death, or like far too many other veterans with PTSD like myself, the only reason I didn't make the choice to take my own life was because of Dearly and Daniel. These two people, my wife and our son, literally loved me back to life. Off Switch was never meant to be a novel. And that book, by the way, Off Switch, is available on Amazon and Etsy with an autograph if you'd like that. It was never meant to be a novel, though. It was meant to be a suicide note. When I sat in that little bamboo shack alone, because Dearly would take the baby to her mother's, allowing me time to write without interruption, I fully intended to use that notebook and those ink pens to leave my note. The one they'd find and cry about and ask themselves why they hadn't done more, etc. But it became a book. It became a book that allowed me to let it all out. It became a book that allowed me to begin healing. And Dearly's belief in me was the seed that grew into a mighty oak's worth of healing. Nearly 10 years as of this writing, so this was 5 years ago, so it's been 15 years now, has passed since that day in October when I moved into the deep, dark jungles of the Philippines with a hungry baby and a hungry woman and a hungry belly, convinced I would never see the United States again. Today, we own a piece of property nestled in the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. Everything you see behind me, we own. We're just outside of Charlottesville, and it's bigger, our property, than the entire neighborhood in which I grew up. We live in a house on our property that is far too big for the three of us and a far cry from that little bamboo hut in Mindanao. We have a pond full of catfish, bass, and sunfish, and we just stocked it again. We have gardens and we have fruit orchards that we planted ourselves. We've planted literally over thousands of trees on this property, about 150 of them being fruit trees that are bearing fruit now. Hell, a couple of months ago, we went out, this is ironic, listen to this. Hell, a couple of months ago, we went out and bought ourselves a brand new pickup truck. Oh, and yes, we have running water and electricity now, too. Well, hell, just yesterday, we went out and bought a brand new Mercedes-Benz. Oh, I sat on the key. Locked myself out. Look at that. Mercedes-Benz of Charlottesville. If you go there, ask for Ash. Wonderful gentleman, 30-ish years old. Great guy. He's got a 2-year-old and 3-month-old, 2 years and 3-month-old baby and a 3-month-old baby. Go give him your business. Today, our needs are met, and we want for nothing. Our cups runneth over, and all credit, aside from being given to God, is also to be given to one person, and one person only. And no, it's not me, it's not the writer, it's not the guy that has done these things and created the success. All praise and all credit goes to the writer's wife. Folks, I'm telling you, when you have somebody in your life who believes in you in such a way that you can't even believe in yourself, and when they throw their entire weight of support behind you and hold you up lift you up when you're down during your deepest, darkest hours. There's nothing you cannot do. That goes for all of us. Okay? Listen, and it takes two to tango. You want your partner to go out there and succeed and give you the best life that they can give you. You need to support your partner, and you need to be doing everything you can to give them the best life that you can give them. Okay? It's not 50-50. The most that will ever up to is 100%. It's 100% and 100%. And you can live the dream. You can live a life that you would ordinarily only fantasize about. It all starts and ends and is filled in the middle with unconditional love and support. It's what Dearly has for me. That's how we made it this far. It's what I have for her. This brand new Mercedes-Benz I just bought her is merely a small token of my appreciation for the love she's given me, the love that her and my son has given me, which loved me back to life. Hope you guys got something out of this. See you for more next time.